What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my refined review and builds guide for the new weapon refines for Nagi, Brunnya, Igrene, Valentine Rudolf, and Tanya. So the first unit that a lot of people have been waiting for is definitely Nagi to get a weapon refine, and she definitely brings along some good effects with this weapon refine to her ethereal breath. So this does give her minus some special cooldown, and she did have the dragon effective damage and also weapon strangle advantage against the colorless foes, and also 80% damage reduction against AoE hits. And now with this weapon refine, she's able to get minus 10 attack and resistance debuff on the foe in the combat, and is also able to heal up 7 HP per hit in the combat, which is really good for the self-sustain. And then with her refinery part, she's able to get the defense and resistance debuff neutralization, and also gets Dragon Wall built into her weapon. So this is definitely helpful because she only had the damage reduction before against the AoE hits, and now she's got the damage reduction against the regular hits, and Dragon Wall definitely goes well with her high resistance of base 41, which also has a super boon, and she is a pretty min-maxed armor unit, so this kind of defense and resistance debuff neutralization definitely helps, but it kind of disables her from being run with like Legendary Male Robin and taking advantage of Grand Strategy. But nonetheless, this definitely helps her with the role of being a far-safe tank. Now, we have got some amazing far-safe tanks in Brattle Tiki and Duoduma, and she's definitely not of that level because she doesn't really have the scowl effect built in her weapon, and she's a green unit, so she's really prone to getting blown up by destructive threats like Legendary Hinoka, Duochrome, and Legendary Veronica. At high enough investment, she can maybe try and survive the lower invested threats, which I mentioned before, but still, those units are going to be problematic units to Nagi because of her being a green unit. Now, other than that, she's going to be able to tank a fair amount of threats pretty easily with the bulk that she has got, and also the weapon strangle advantage against the colorless units definitely helping her quite a lot, because we have seen quite a lot of colorless threats in past few months and in terms of the meta units, so it is always going to be helpful. And the fact that she's got high resistance and the damage reductions against AoE hits means that a lot of the AoE threats mean nothing to Nagi because she's easily going to be able to tank them. So that is definitely going to be making Nagi as a much better far-safe tank, and she already was a pretty decent far-safe tank, but with the weapon refine, she's even better as a far-safe tank. It's just that the green color kind of holds her back in a way because of the red threats that we have got, and they're kind of omnipresent in competitive game modes and in the higher levels of gameplay, so there it could be a bit annoying for Nagi, but like I said, at like high investment, she does have options to deal with them, and at least not immediately die to them, and I'm going to be discussing that as I go over the builds. So if you're going to be building up Nagi, then definitely using her as a far-safe tank is going to be the way. So you can feed her a Henriette from the Divine Codes and simply have Distant Defense 4 and far-save, and Special Fighter 3 is a decent budget skill that she already has. So you can run Iceberg and rely on the one-shots, but relying on one-shots nowadays is not the best strategy because units can be pretty bulky with the damage reduction and everything. So having some kind of auto follow-up is going to be helpful at higher investment. And she could also be used in Summoner Duels as actually with Hardy Fighter. And in Summoner Duels, survival matters a lot more than actually killing units. So that's why trying to run her with Hardy Fighter and Aegis is going to be helping you because she has, dumb amount of damage reduction with the Dragon Wall combined with Hardy Fighter Aegis. So this is going to be the way of dealing with many of the nukes which can hit really hard, especially if you have a low investment Nagi. But again, you have to watch out for the red threats as those are going to be annoying. And if you want to invest into Nagi with all of the best options that she has got, then this is going to be the peak Nagi build. So this uses Armored Flow from Brattle Tiki, so you can get that and the far-safe skill at the same time. And you can also use Attack Resistance Scowl from Rhea, and this is going to be further delaying the special of the enemy, which is really helpful with her high resistance. And Vengeful Fighter 4 is the perfect slot B skill for Nagi because it provides her even more attack debuff on the opponent, which stacks up with her weapon, and that can help her just tank a lot better. And shredding the attack of the opponent is always going to be helpful. And then she's also able to get the breath effect out of the Vengeful Fighter, so she's easily able to trigger Armored Flow, and the follow-up negation out of Vengeful Fighter is also really helpful as she is a slow tank, and anytime that effect is useful, it's going to be helping her survive better by denying the follow-up attack. So this is basically the best Nagi build that you can make with her weapon refine, and this is definitely a build that can even survive some of the red threats which I mentioned before, which are really annoying. And even like before the refine, with this kind of build, she was able to survive them because Armored Flow and Scout skill are so amazing on Nagi, because Armored Flow is basically like a slightly weaker iceberg, but it has got the damage reduction, which is not pierceable by Deadeye or lethality. So it is so helpful in surviving many of the threats, and this is something you can run if you're a big Nagi fan. If you don't really have the Scout skill, then you can also run Mirror Stance 3 in her slot A, and Vengeful Fighter 4 is going to be staying pretty much the best slot B skill that you can run. And you can also run Armored Flow just so that you can get that damage reduction and also use that to do a lot of damage with her resistance. And then finally, if you're going to be using her in Aether Raids defense, then she's going to be a really potent far safe tank for a Brattle Catria team, for example, because she is so bulky and she can run the Scout skill, stack up the damage reduction by running another layer of Dragon Wall in her slot B and being really annoying to opponents and not letting them initiate with like a pre-charged lethality Yuri or stuff like that. And a lot of the red threads, which I mentioned before, are not really used as much in like Aether Raids offense. You're not really going to be seeing people using Legendary Veronica in like Aether Raids offense and stuff like that. So that's why this is the build that you can run. Obviously, you could run into a bad matchup, and if someone is running Legendary Hinoka, then they're just going to be able to kill her, but still, she can be a pretty tanky, far safe tank to be used there. And with Medius, you're going to be able to get the On Guard effect so that you're not, threatened by the Bolt Tower. Igrene gets a pretty good weapon refined to function as a nuking archer, and she does have the minus and special cooldown in her weapon, which is really helpful. And the primary effect of her weapon is always going to be active in the player phase, but if you need it to be active in the enemy phase, then you need to meet the speed check, which pretty much requires Igrene to have equal to or more than foe speed -7, and by having this effect active, you're going to be able to debuff the opponent for -5 attack speed and defense in the combat, and she also gets 30% damage reduction on foe's first attack. And for her weapon refine, she's able to get +4 to all of her stats, and also gets true damage based on 10% of her speed, including the AoE specials. So Igrene already comes with a base kit, which is pretty fit for spamming AoE specials, so it's really good that this kind of true damage is going to be getting added to those AoE specials. And then finally, she's able to get the Null Guard effect, or the half tempo effect, and also gets the doubt speed defense effect built in her refine. So she's going to be able to ignore any kind of speed buff or defense buff of her opponents, and that definitely opens up her slot B skill because she doesn't really have to run any tempo skill or loud speed defense, and she can just run some other options. So this is going to be helping her trigger Deadeye a lot easily, or just specials in general with the Null Guard effect. And you're not going to be caring about any kind of visible buffs to opponent speed and defense, which does help her nuke a lot better as an archer. Now obviously there's a lot of competition when it comes to a nuking archer, but still Igrene is able to function a bit better now because of this weapon refine, which is definitely pretty good with the effects that it gives her. If you're going to be using her on a budget, then simply running her with the AoE build is going to be the way to go, because she's going to be getting the extra damage from the true damage in her weapon refine added to the AoE special. So she already comes with Life and Death 4 and Special Spiral 3, so that is an easy way to do it. But if you're going to be using her outside of the AoE specials, then she's definitely going to be appreciating some other skills, and you can definitely give her skills like Attack Speed Ideal 4, Null Follow-Up, Speed Defense Menace from the Divine Codes. And if you did get a Forma Igrene, you probably had a build similar to this. I actually got the Tempo skill for her in the Hollow Forms, which is completely worthless now with the half Tempo built in her weapon. So you can just run Null Follow-Up, as it is definitely the best lobby skill for Igrene after this weapon refine, because she already has all of the effects that it could possibly want on this kind of unit. And you can just run Deadeye so that it becomes a 2 cooldown special, and she's easily able to trigger that because of the damage reduction that she gets, which is helpful for her survival, and also the half tempo or the Null Guard effect built in her weapon, which does allow her to easily trigger Deadeye. And she does have good enough attack stat to make use of Deadeye and good amount of damage output, so she can definitely run a build like this. And I feel like running a build which is not AoE build does help her a bit more, because she's able to utilize the effects from her weapon refine a lot more, because Null Guard and the dull speed defense is really not going to be helping you too much with the AoE builds, while it is pretty significant with a build like this where you are going to be triggering Deadeye. And you can also run her with a max investment build using Attack Speed Finish 4 so that you can get even more true damage and the healing out of it. And Attack Speed Oath 4 can be run so that she can get even more offenses in the combat. And again, like I said, Null Follow-Up is pretty much going to be the best lobby skill that you can run on Igrene after this weapon refine. And this is going to be helping you trigger Deadeye as a 2 cooldown special. These are pretty standard options for an archer, but if you want to have some more fun options, then I definitely have some builds for that. So speed preempt is something that you can run because again her lobby skill is rather flexible, and even though null follow-up is the best lobby skill, speed preempt can be worked out at max investment, and she does have, you know, a good amount of speed from her weapon and also has the doubt speed defense built in her weapon. So this can allow her to basically function as a vantage unit against the ranged units, and you can just run Time Pulse 4 so that you can always have a pre-charged Ruptured Sky, which can do a lot of damage, especially with the true damage that she can get. So I would only recommend this at like max investment or high investment. Definitely not the most optimal build, but like I said, it is definitely a fun option. And you can actually run Igrene now in a Bridal Catcher team and deal with a lot of God Sword units, and especially Lucia. Now the reason why I'm running physical null follow-up here is because Lucia does disable any kind of specials, so even if you run Deadeye, you're really not going to be able to pierce through a damage reduction. By running physical null follow-up, you're able to get some speed debuff on the opponent, which is really helpful in outspeeding them, especially against the God Sword, so that they do not really get as much damage reduction from their skills, and you're also able to get the full null follow-up along with cutting their damage reduction into half. So they're going to be able to get still some kind of damage reduction. You're not completely disabling their damage reduction, but still it is helpful. And especially with the Bridal Catcher team where you can quad attack in the Dark Season, this can definitely prove to be fatal against many of the God Sword units, especially when you run our feud, which is going to be debuffing them and also is going to be disabling any kind of external support that they might be getting. So this is a very specific build that you can run for Aether Raids defense, and with Remote Sparrow and the damage reduction from her weapon, she basically gets like 50% damage reduction, which does help her survival a lot, especially with the HP that she has got. And like I said, with this build, she's mainly going to be, you know, threatening a lot of the God Sword units and just stacking up a lot of speed so that they cannot really double her. Even if Igrene doesn't really double them, she's still going to be able to do a lot of damage to them because of the physical null follow-up that she has got by cutting through their damage reduction. And you definitely want to run a unit that can deal with stuff like Brave Dimitris, because blue Omni tanks are definitely going to be really annoying for Igrene. So that is the Aether Raids defense build, which Igrene can definitely now run a lot better because of having this kind of weapon refine, which helps her nuke. Valentine Rudolf, in my opinion, is the winner out of this weapon refine badge because he gets a really stacked weapon refine that pretty much makes him like a seasonal version of Kiel. So Thornlance did have minus on special cooldown and also the follow-up negation, but now with this weapon refine, he's able to debuff the opponent's attack and defense by -11 in the combat, and he also gets damage reduction based on his attack subtracted by foe's attack ×2, and this can go all the way up to 40% damage reduction, and at minimum he's going to be getting absolutely no damage reduction, so that is also going to be a possibility against many of the modern threats, but still, like, he debuffs the opponent's attack by so much. And speaking of attack debuffs, he's able to debuff opponent's attack even further and get extra attack in the combat, depending on 50% of the highest visible buffs among himself and the allies within 2 spaces. So if you have a lot of tactic skills and a lot of visible buffs going on, then he's going to be debuffing the opponent's attack by over 20, which is absolutely insane. And then he's also able to get 7 HP heal after the combat, which is really good for the self-sustain. So this is going to be making him like a Kiel basically, because Kiel is known for shredding opponent's attack by quite a lot, and Rudolf pretty much does that similar thing, but here he does have an even better weapon refine with minus on special cooldown, and he's also able to have a pretty good stat spread, which does make him a good near safe tank, and he can even function as a good far safe tank just based on the fact that he can shred opponent's attack by so much. Drawing comparison with a modern unit, he's pretty much like a blue young Hector because of the sheer fact that he can get so much attack debuff on the opponent. Obviously, young Hector is a lot better as a unit, but still Rudolf is definitely no joke now after this weapon refine, which makes him a really good unit. Unfortunately, he's a seasonal unit, so getting merges on him is going to be really tough. But even at low investment, with this kind of weapon refine, from what I've tested, he's going to be functioning as a pretty nice bulky unit. This doesn't really mean that he's not going to be dying to the absolutely insane nukes that we have got, but it definitely helps his save tanking potential a lot more now because he can debuff the opponent's attack by quite a lot and also get this kind of damage reduction in the combat. So if you're going to be building up Rudolf on a budget, then you can definitely try and run him as a near safe tank by foddering a Dedu on him, and you can just run Slick Fighter from the Gensei that we had in the limited ephemera manual. So Slick Fighter can definitely be helpful, and attack is a pretty important stat for him, so having a boon on it is going to be helping him pretty much get the damage reduction as much as he can. And he can just run Fierce Breath as well, just so that he can stack up even more attack. So with this kind of build, he's able to get the guard effect and also the auto follow-up, which he does lack with this weapon refine. And this is going to be making him even more bulky with the attack debuffs that he can get. You can also run him with a build that you might have gotten from the Hall of Forms if it did redeem him. So attack defense unity is definitely going to be helping him quite a lot in case he gets debuffed on his attack. And you can also just run Crafty Fighter to get the guard effect, because he's a slow unit at the end of the day, and if he's going to be facing fast null follow-up threats that can trigger special, then the guard effect can actually be pretty helpful, and you can still run Bonfire and let him function as a near safe tank. And if you're going to be investing heavily into him, then the peak Rudolf build is going to be using Armored Beacon and, Distant Ferocity. And Vengeful Fighter does overlap a bit with Thorn Lance with its follow-up negation, but the main use of Vengeful Fighter 4 here is definitely to get the breath effect and also to get even more attack debuff on the enemy. So with the already present attack debuffs from his weapon, he's going to be able to be really bulky with Vengeful Fighter and easily trigger Armored Beacon, which is going to be functioning off really well with his high defense. And he also gets a damage reduction which cannot be pierced by Deadeye or Lethality. You're rarely going to be seeing this kind of expensive build at this investment, but still I wanted to showcase what he's capable of at this kind of high investment. And if you're going to be using him in Summoner Duels S, like many people, then he can still work out with the build which I recommended back in my Hall of Forms video, and it still works out fine. Now, as someone who has a free-to-play account and I don't really have too many far save units, I still use Rudolf in Summoner Duels S, because as long as your far save tank is alive, your team is protected from many of the ranged threats, so survival matters a lot more. So not running distant counter on a far save build is completely fine, and if you've played like high level of Summoner Duels, then you know that this is definitely a thing which we have seen for many months and even a year at this point. So Deflect Magic could be helpful if you do face Bridal Catria or Winter Cordelia Mage Nukes. And this kind of damage reduction on the first hit with Aegis and then on the second hit with the Deflect Magic is going to be really helpful with the attack debuffs that he can do. And then finally, if you're going to be using him in Aether Raids defense, then he can function as a pretty good, near safe tank, because he can stop stuff like Summer Edelgard, for example, and even take on stuff like Brave Seliph, who are going to be hitting really hard. So Hardy Fighter Escutcheon is going to be needed here, as you basically want to prioritize your survival than killing the opponent. And Hardy Fighter Escutcheon is going to be helping you even if you get doubled. You're going to be able to trigger Escutcheon on the second hit, so that can make him a pretty annoying unit to get past, especially after his weapon refine. Tanya surprisingly gets a really effective weapon refine that tries to fix her lackluster damage output, and this kind of weapon refine was really not expected by me on a demote unit. But yeah, Tanya is a lot better now with this weapon refine. So this weapon does give her +8 to all of her stats, and also gives her true damage based on 10% of her speed, including the AoE specials. But it is a lot less relevant for Tanya because she cannot really run the AoE specials as easily as Igrene because of lacking the -1 special cooldown in her weapon. And then comes the best part about her weapon, which is the adaptive damage. So she doesn't really need to run attack speed Hexblade, and she can just get the consistent adaptive damage with her weapon, which can definitely help her against many of the tanks which have lopsided defenses. And this is obviously not going to be helping you against many of the min-max tanks, but still, having the adaptive damage does improve her matchups significantly, especially with the foe penalty doubler or the Pelagian effect that she's able to get from her weapon refine. So Tanya is going to be a lot better as a archer now, and this is really good because for the longest time she has faced competition from Norn, and in my opinion this kind of weapon refine is better than Norn, and she's just much better now in terms of doing damage and functioning as an infantry archer, especially at like plus and merge if you do invest into her. So she gets a pretty solid weapon refine which tries to fix her damage output and definitely makes her pretty unique with that adaptive damage. Unfortunately, she lacks the -1 special cooldown in her weapon, which is kinda expected out of a debuff refine, and she's also not going to be doing the best amount of damage against the units who have equal defenses, and especially if they have any kind of debuff neutralization, then the foe penalty doubler effect is not really going to be helping her much. And thirdly, like, she doesn't really have any kind of way of being self-sufficient with this weapon and debuffing the opponent consistently, like many of the other units who have this kind of foe penalty doubler effect. So she definitely relies on the allies so that she can get a lot of debuffs on the opponent, like Duo Mark, for example, Aversa, Yune. Those are just few examples of the allies that could be run with Tanya so that she can get the most out of her foe penalty doubler. And you can actually stack up the foe penalty doubler in her weapon with the foe penalty doubler status that you get from Panic Ploy 4. So she definitely has a pretty high ceiling if you just stack up a lot of the effects, and it can definitely be pretty fun. So I'm really happy that Tanya gets a really solid weapon refine as a demote unit. Now, I would only recommend building her up if you're going to be investing like heavily into her with merges and dragon flowers, because at the end of the day, she's still an older unit with like 30 base attack. So any of the help is going to be appreciated with these skills and investment. So at plus and merge, plus speed IV is definitely going to be the best way of running her so that she can outspeed a lot of the threats. And this is a way that you can build her up from the divine codes. So we have got attack speed ideal and null follow up in the divine codes. And we also had Fallen Male Morgan recently in the limited ephemera manuals. So he can basically provide her with the attack resistance menace, which is going to be working really well with the adaptive damage that she has got. So she's going to be targeting the resistance of most of her enemies that do have lopsided defenses. Most of the time they're going to be having a lot higher defense than they're going to be having resistance. So debuffing their resistance does make sense, and it does help her with the adaptive damage. And when you're going to be having the adaptive damage, I feel like running Glimmer is a bit better than running Moonbow because it does scale better, and we're already going to be debuffing the opponent's resistance. So in case we're facing some kind of mage, that kind of Moonbow is not really going to be helping you that much. So I do like Glimmer a lot more as your special. And this is a budget build that you can try and run from the divine codes and the limited ephemera manuals. But if you're going to be investing even more into her, then Time Pulse 4 and Attack Speed Finish 4 are the options that you can run, which can provide her with more damage output, and it can work with Deadeye. Deadeye does scale off based on the damage that you do to the enemy, and even though she does not have the highest attack, she can still get like high damage output with the adaptive damage and the foe penalty doubler effect. So Deadeye could be worked out. Now, unfortunately, because of not having minus on special cooldown, Time Pulse is something that is needed so that you can have Deadeye as a 2 cooldown special, and then the tempo skill is going to be helping you trigger Deadeye pretty easily in a single round of combat, and you can easily get speed defense tempo from the divine codes, and you can also try and outsource null follow up so that you can still get the null follow up effect and still get the tempo effect at the same time. So this is also one of the ways of running Tanya, but in my opinion the best way of using her is definitely with physical null follow up, because she doesn't really have the easiest way of running Deadeye. She will have to run Time Pulse if she wants to run Deadeye and trigger that in a single round of combat. So physical null follow up and its cutting damage reduction into half is definitely helpful for Tanya. And you can just run Glimmer as the special and run Attack Speed Finish 4. And like I mentioned before, you can actually stack up the foe penalty doubler with Panic Smoke 4. And if you run Dual Mark, then that is going to be pretty insane for her, as you can get a lot of debuffs on the opponent. So Panic Smoke 4, in my opinion, is the best Lotsie skill that you can run on Tanya, especially at this kind of high and max investment. If you want to fully pierce through the damage reduction skills, then Special Spiral 4 is going to be an option that could be run with Glimmer. And again, Panic Smoke 4 is the option that you should be running at high investment, so I would definitely recommend that. And speaking of Panic Smoke 4, you can actually stack it up with Dual Mark, because Dual Mark can inflict the Sabotage status on the foes, which is basically foe penalty doubler effect, but on the enemy. And you can stack up the foe penalty doubler on your Tanya with Panic Smoke 4 and with her weapon, and just pairing her up with something like Legendary Male Robin, and by running the Unity skill. So in case you get debuffed yourself, you can just get so many stats in the combat and then also debuff the opponent by a lot by just stacking up the debuff. So this is a way of using her, and Dual Mark is definitely the best ally that you can have with a full penalty doubler unit like Tanya, for example. And this is going to be elevating her damage output and her potential by quite a lot. So it can be really fun if you do have Dual Mark. Unfortunately, these are pretty rare units and seasonal logged and legendary logged, but still, like, if you do have them, then they can be a lot of fun with Tanya. The last unit from this batch is going to be Brunnya, and the reason why she's last is because she's actually last in the refined batch itself because of the lackluster weapon refine that she has got, which is really unfortunate because a lot of people have heavily invested into her over the years and they were looking forward to this weapon refine, but unfortunately it does disappoint. So Fimble Vetter was the weapon giving her the Spectrum debuff neutralization, and now with this weapon refine she's able to get +8 to all of her stats in the combat, and also debuff opponents' attack and resistance based on the foe's maximum special cooldown count. multiplied by 2, and then subtracted by 10. So basically, the lower the special cooldown count of the opponent, the more debuffs you're going to be able to get on them. It's kind of similar to what Ascended Fur can do, but this is going to be targeting the resistance of the opponent and also the attack stat. So she can get a lot of attack and resistance debuff on the opponent, which can definitely help her tank a lot better and also do a lot more damage. But unfortunately, this is not enough with the stat spread that she has got, which is definitely outdated at this point. And then finally, the final nail on the coffin is going to be the Weapon Refine effect, which gives her guaranteed follow-up attack, but only when she's within 3 spaces of a support partner. Now, this is really disappointing because this could have been an effect without this use of support partner. It really limits the team usage. You constantly have to change the ally support for using her in different game modes. Now, there are units with, this kind of ally support effect and mechanic, but the thing is that there are units like Veluria or like Fallen Lilith, which actually have a good enough effect to justify the ally support requirement. On the other hand, we have Brunnya here with guaranteed follow-up attack, which is not the best thing when we have got such fast units in the metagame with null follow-up, which are completely going to be ignoring the guaranteed follow-up attack of hers. So I really wish that she got something more, and it was not just a guaranteed follow-up attack for the support partner condition. And this is pretty much the reason why this is a rather lackluster weapon refine, and I feel like this is the case where we had Death Knight's weapon refine and it was not really all that good, and then we got the Arcane Xiang on Alfred. I think that could happen with Brunnya as well, where she pretty much is able to access an Arcane Blue Tome, which is just better than her weapon refine. So just a word of caution, before you invest too heavily into her with this weapon refine, you can try and wait and see what kind of Arcane Blue Tome we get, because that could definitely help Brunnya quite a lot compared to this weapon refine, in my opinion. So unfortunately, once a Queen of Aether Raids Omni tanking has fallen quite a bit with the threats that we have got, with the nukes that we have got, and especially with this kind of weapon refine, which doesn't really help her too much. So if you're going to be building up Brunnya, I would only suggest if you plus and merge her and give her a lot of the expensive skills, because she's definitely going to be needing it in a time like this. And you can still try and make a rather budget Brunnya with the codes by using attack resistance solo and attack res menace from the limited ephemera manual Fallen Male Morgan that we have. So it could be useful, and you can just stack up the debuffs with the menace skill and level attack resistance, which could be obtained from the divine codes. So that is one way of building up Brunnya. And I know that like in the older times when she used to be used a lot as an omni tank, she used to speed stack quite a lot, but at this point, like, her speed is really awkward and it's not enough when we have such fast units. So you can also try and stack up her resistance and run her with attack resistance finish 4, which does have perfect synergy with the ally support condition, which requires the support partner to be within 3 spaces. So it could be worked out, and you can also run the Oath 4 skill. And null follow-up is something that you can run in her slot base so that you can just stop the opponents which are slower than her and they have some kind of auto follow weapon. So that is always going to be helpful, and that is always going to be helpful even if you don't have the highest speed stat. Because we definitely have a lot slower units than Brunnya who have auto follow up, and they can be annoying. So stopping their double attack can be useful with null follow up, and null follow up as it is, used to be pretty much the best lobby skill for Brunnya if you did build her in the older times. You can also run her with a more modern build with Special Spiral 4 and Time Pulse 4 and loop Iceberg with her high resistance and do a lot of damage. And even when we get the Arcane Blue Tome, which has got some kind of minus on special cooldown, this is still going to be a build that is going to be useful, I believe. So this can definitely be run on her, but still, try and see if the Arcane Blue Tome is good enough before investing. And then finally, at the end, we have the old school speed build with Brunnya. Now, like I said, in the older days, Brunnya used to speed stack, and that kind of speed stacking was enough, but definitely not in the modern times. But still, she can get pretty fast at this kind of max investment with attack speed finish 4, magical null follow up for cutting through the damage reduction, and then Oath 4 and attack speed form. So she does get, 70 plus speed, which is not going to be the enough, speed stat at this point. This is definitely not the best way of building a Brunnya nowadays with the speed creep that we have got, but if you really want to speed stack on her, then this is going to be the option with the modern skills that we have got. So let me know in the comments what do you think about the refined badge that we have got, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to build up any of these units with the new refine. And if you did enjoy, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps us tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Brunnya's Weapon Refine. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.